estimated document count. Could I take a quick gander at your code? Absolutely. See how we could add local storage. So we have an input, which we're listening for key press. On enter, I'm going to recommend you don't do this. I'm going to recommend that you do a form submission instead. But this works for now. New item. Inner text. I mean, so let's write a demo app. I'm Groupith. What are you more familiar with? Angular, React? You know what? Forget all that. We're not going to use any of those. We're going to use native JavaScript. That's what you're using. That's what we can use. I can do this. I can write code that is not in a framework. So let's write something very similar. Let's go yoink. Let's do yoink. Learning vanilla. Very nice. Are you learning it from another framework or like... Are you learning from another programming language? I love talking Thursday off, studying programming to rest my brain and refresh it. Very nice. Oh, love taking Thursday off. Nice. Yeah, totally. Oh, learning it from CSS. Very cool. All right. Brand new to all this, don't worry about it. Don't worry. Know some of the basics. Okay. Actually, oh, these need to be IDs, huh? Okay. Kill this by ID. Okay, so we can do test. Right? Great work. This is actually legitimately fantastic work for starting off. So good work there, especially because your code looks clean and there's nothing like bad about it. Well, I mean, there's nothing like egregiously bad about it. You know, like every code can use some improvement, but you know. All right. I don't know why. Why are you formatting it this way? Stop! Whatever. Fine, stack lets you in. And then if you click on one, it turns them green. Okay. Double clicking removes. And clear all does that. Oh, remove child. Okay. So this needs some improvement. Yeah, so this needs some improvement. So let's do that. Let's fix the clear all button first. What I would do is the clear button dot out of it listener can do move. What about this? Does this work? Pop. Nope. Cannot set. Fine. ul.children.for each child. I will keep this simple. For child of children. Let's remove that child. Pop. Whoa. What? Whoa. Wait, what? HTML collection. What am I missing? What am I doing wrong? Neko seems to have an idea of what I'm doing wrong. I have no idea what I'm doing wrong. Why is it removing half of them? Should be removing them all. I'm so confused. I think it's only mute. Look at Neko. Absolute genius. Thank you, Neko. That's a very weird behavior. I wouldn't have expected that, but okay. Neko for the win here. Okay. So let's explain what this code is doing. I'm actually going to zoom out. So what's happening here is when we get a click from clear button, we are getting ul.children, and is there a better way to write this? Yes, there is. And we are creating an array out of ul.children, so then that way, even if ul.children is mutated, we still have the full list of your children, right? And then init children, we're going to call this all children. And then for each item, each child of all children, remove that child, right? And that's how we're able to do, boom, clear all, right? So that's one piece of code we can improve. Adding new items makes sense. Double click makes sense. Okay. So what I would do is let's go ahead and on enter, again, I would change that to a submit event. Let's do a local storage dot set item. Okay. Local storage is an array, or is a string, right? Meaning we need to store our data as JSON to string because it's a serializable data format. What I mean by serializable is data that can easily be converted to and from a string. So let's take a look at what that example might look like. Let's do JSON dot stringify an object. That object has a key of hello and a value of 1. That can easily be turned into a string, and then we can take this string and do json.parse. We'll have to change these really quickly, but there we go. Oh, hang on. There we go. You can parse that JSON to and from back and forth, right? Here, hang on. Chat's blocking. There we go. Script is like a Python Selenium. Actually, this code is perfectly fine. This makes a lot of sense. Now, let's take something like this object, where you have test, and the function can do hello plus plus, right? Hello equals 1, hello plus plus, right? So in this case, test is a function. So if we do json.stringify, I can type there, json.stringify. You'll notice that it gives us an empty object. That's because functions are not serializable. They're not easily converted to strings and back from strings. You can do it, but you shouldn't. It's not safe. It's just a bad idea. Don't do it. Likewise, with objects like an HTML element, you can't really serialize that HTML node, or if you do, you're going to lose some level of data. So because of that, we want to store the strings, right? Because that's what is really happening here. We want to store the strings for each of these. But we need to grab, so let's do this. Let's create an array in data. So let's say const data array equals local storage. Make it, you know what? Here, we will call this function Anubis, and we'll know that this is our global data from local storage, right? Anubis is local storage dot get item. We'll call this items, right? Or it'll be an empty string like this, and it'll be json.parse. Boom. So Anubis is this big array, right? So let's do Anubis. Dot push, and we'll do input. Actually, hang on. Let's create a constant. Const val equals input dot value. And here we can just do val, and then push val. And now we need to do local storage dot set item, json dot stringify Anubis, right? Anubis, you made this very difficult to code and read. So I'm going to keep up with this for one more second, and then we're going to rename it. So something like this, right? Now, when we remove an item, on double click, we can do, so dot push pushes the data to the array? Yes. So it adds one to the end of the array. But keep in mind, without this line of code, all we've done is mutate a local variable. We've not actually updated local storage. So this, let's actually rename this. Storage array. Sorry, Anubis. I tried playing along. I'm just trying to make sure the code's readable. So by doing just this, the storage array.push, it adds to an item at the end, but we can't actually set this item at all, right? So, or sorry, we can set this item, but it's not being set by default. So like if we just ran this code normally and we didn't do local storage.update, it wouldn't actually store that updated item in the array. So now if we do .set item, it allows us to set the new value in items. And all we're doing is we're taking that old array that we've pushed the new item to, stringifying it, right? We can do storage array.filter. You know what we're going to do? ul.children dot find, hang on, HTML children. Sorry, I'm Googling something really quickly to figure out the right way to do this. I want MDN. HTML collection dot item. Base index. That's not what I'm really looking for. Okay. Find okay. So I'll show you two ways of doing things. We'll come back to that in a second. Okay, we'll come back to this. So let's start with this, right? Oh. Okay, we have 4 items here, right? What this code is doing is it's saying when you double click on an item, pop the item off of the array and then set the items. So let's double click the last item. Perfect, working as expected, right? Let's add 2 more back. What happens when I click A? You'll notice that, sorry, I realize we need to refresh. Okay, storage item. Dot for each. Okay, hang on. I will get to this in a second. I realize I've made a horrible mistake. What I need to do is we need to abstract this functionality out to a new function. And why we need to do that is because let's take a look at storage array. Let's do console.log storage array. You'll notice that we have 3 items in this array, but they're not showing up in the list. That's because when we create the web page, we need to do, for each item in the storage array, we need to do this, right? So let's go ahead and do that. Let's move these items into a function that's called function create array item. And we'll do val, which is a string. And you'll notice that just because we have that function there doesn't mean it's actually doing anything. So here, we can pass in val, and we can say input.value equals empty string. And that's about it, right? So now, there we go. We've refactored the main logic into a function. And now we're calling that function, right? So this is handling getting the event value, pushing the value, saving the value. That's all handled here. But then we also have the create item, which actually creates the HTML node. So now we can say storage array for let val of storage array create array item val. And there we go. Ta-da, we did it. So let's get rid of some of these first. Let's do local storage. I seriously hate how it doesn't actually do anything. Set item, items, and we'll have it be an empty array, right? We'll refresh a page, nothing shows up. We have test. If we refresh the page, test shows up, right? So let's do 2 more. Hello and last, right? If we refresh, all 3 of those show up. Perfect. So let's say right now I don't have any of the code to mutate storage array or to like change the array in any way. So if I refresh a page, I still have those 3 items, right? Because we're setting them when we create the new item, right? But we're not doing anything to remove those items. So let's change that. We will always need to set items to storage array. But now we need to change storage array in some way. So let's try the simplest. Let's try .pop, right? So .pop means take the last item off the very end. Cool. So let's save that. Let's reload just to be safe. Let's double click last and let's refresh. Works exactly as expected. But notice that we double clicked on the last item in that array. What happens if we double click on the first item of the array? Like this. If we refresh, you'll notice that instead of hello being there, test, which we thought we removed, is gone. So .pop isn't appropriate here. This isn't what we want to do. So instead, what if we did something like, I can't remember if it's slice or splice. I just because they're so similarly named. Doesn't change the original array. Splice mutates. Thank you. Let's do splice. Just for simplicity. Okay, so splice basically says remove an item from the array, right? And how many items to remove there. So first we have to find an index. So we can do that using this, right? Const val index. So what we're saying here is given an array, find the value, in this case v, that equals val, right? So we're going to remove from val index, and we're going to remove 1, right? So let's see that. Let's create 2 more. Hello last. Let's refresh the page. Okay. And now if we click the second item, we should see test and last if I refresh. Ta-da! Very cool, right? So this is removing that item from the index. But check this out. Let's clear all. Clear all isn't going to actually do anything. That's fine. So we'll have test, last, test, test, right? So we have test, last, test, test. And they're the same for a reason. Because find index returns after the first result. So if I double click test right here, it doesn't know that it's that I'm clicking the last item. It's just trying to find anything that matches test. So if I double click it and I refresh, you'll notice that instead of removing the last test, it removed the first test. So let's change that. Let's instead find the exact child. Let's double click all these so that we can test this later on. So now it's empty, right? So now what we're doing is, given the array of children, instead of finding by value, we're finding the element that is the element we're clicking on, right? So const val index. And now we're splicing that out of the array. So now if I hit save and I refresh, and I do test, middle, test, and I double click this test, now if we refresh the page, you'll see that the correct test is gone. Awesome. So this is more stable, right? Your input matches exactly the same output every time because we're obeying exactly what we're looking for. Now there's one more thing that I bet you're wondering. How do we get clear all to work? And I'll tell you, it's actually super simple. We'll change storage array to let, and on clicking all, we'll do storage array equals an empty array, and then local storage.set items. Cool. Now we refresh, we click clear all, we refresh, they're gone. So that's it. I will call this JS item management demo, and I've sent that to the chat. Groupith, was that you? Yes, Groupith, please feel free to hijack this code and utilize it and grow on it and hang out. Yeah. So some of them have, what do you mean earlier I should change? Oh, okay, yeah. Let's take a look. So many commands. Okay. So what I was recommending is that instead of a div here, let's change this to a form. And then we'll add something else. Actually, can we do something else? Here, we'll do input, but we'll also do form. Get element by tag. Okay. And now, whenever you do form.add event submit, it's got get element by tag name. Fine, get element by ID tag. ID equals form. Okay, so now instead of on input, it's on submit. And now we can do e.prevent default, because the default behavior of a form submitting is such that it refreshes the page. So the nice part here is that whenever you hit enter, it works, right? So we can clear all, we can start typing tests, whatever, right? So enter submits. But the other nice part is, let's say that you wanted to add a button. You want to add a button because it makes the user experience much nicer. It makes it so much nicer. It's also very important for accessibility. But now if you add a button, I don't need to add any other code. No other code, because a button by default submits the form that it's inside. So now it works perfectly, right? So by using a form instead of listening for the input changes, it means that you can add buttons to do the exact same things because buttons submit the forms. So it's just like it's a much more standardized way of using the web, and because it's a much more standardized of using the web, it's much more accessible, and it's much easier to extend the logic of. So that's kind of what I meant.